All right, what we're going to talk about is basically taking one metal or piece of jewelry and applying a layer of a more precious metal over the top of it. There can be several reasons for putting one type of metal over the other. With jewelry, it's usually going to be something cosmetic. You want it to look like something much more expensive than it actually is, or you want to add some sort of accent to a piece. Or there are other, there are some industrial applications where you want to put a layer of nickel over something, or you want to put chrome over something, which it's all the same process. Say you wanted to make something less, more corrosion resistant. You could put a type of metal over a piece of iron that wouldn't rust. But what we're going to talk about is how to make things like that. All right, that's a simple etched copper cuff, not the best one I ever did, but, and then you take that and then you apply gold over the top of it.
Oh, hello.
Now, it does look a little weird for two reasons. A, I did not clean that as well as it should have. I kind of wanted an example of what that looks like. And B, this is what's called Hamilton gold. It is a type of gold that is really not in style any longer, but it's just like green gold or rose gold or anything else, or 14 to 18 karat. They're all different shades of gold depending on what alloy they've used. Hamilton gold was popular, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, and it's a very, very orange gold. I did this while I was practicing yesterday. I did this. It's a little darker than it should be. I left it in a little too long, but it's a very unusual and dramatic shade of gold. I like it.
Can you electroplate things other than metal? Like, say, a pine cone, acorn, leaf?
Yes, in a roundabout sort of way you can. It requires that you first electroform it, though.
English, please?
Well, as a perfect example. Okay, so you've got an organic item that does not conduct electricity. Electricity is the key to this whole process. It's what we use to make the metal migrate from one thing to the other. So we need to start with a base coat. And when you're dealing with an organic item, you have to first put a conductive paint over it. Well, first you have to seal it, because most of these solutions are all very acidic. And if you put an organic item into it, then it dissolves in there, and then it destroys the solution. So you seal it, you put a conductive paint over it, and then you electroform it, which is basically depositing a thin layer of copper over it, and that gives it some structural strength. I mean, by itself, a twig is not going to stand up to day-to-day wear, so we give it a little more strength with a thick layer of copper. And you want to use the copper because you don't want to use the gold. All right, a thick layer of gold is very, very expensive. So
Copper it is.
You say that you can put metal on any organic? Oh,
absolutely.
really? What
Okay,
is called
now-
electroforming?
Electroforming. Remember, I don't know if people still do the bronze baby shoes,
Mm.
but you remember way back when? Well, that's how they did it.
Oh, okay.
So they would deposit a layer of copper or bronze or whatever it is over the baby shoes.
It's like a paint or?
The graphite paint goes over the item, and that conducts the electricity.
Oh, okay.
And
And
then
it also seals it.
no, sealer first.
Okay,
Then-
sealer would be like not a shellac, but a spray.
Actually, it's a thick, almost glue-like substance that you paint on. I don't know whether or not it is just glue, and they call it one thing. I don't know, but we'll keep using what she's got.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah, so you can take almost anything, you turn it metal, and then you're free to put whatever type of plating you want on top of that. All right? So, what
So
are...
you use a different solution for the electroforming.
Correct. That was a previous demo. which we will have again if you would ever like to.
Which one?
The electroforming and electroplating.
Electroforming and etching.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's the one I wanna.
You gotta like us on Facebook, and then you'll find out all of them.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
rock real nice
And then,
to
you,
him.
then it comes
But
I guess I
between you
had
and
to
me,
wait.
that,
No, please,
that
not
and
until next
sand
year.
casting are probably the most popular demos we have, and no matter how many times I do them, people still want me to do them more. So if you would like another round of etching and electroforming, I would be more than happy. Sure.
I'll come to one too.
Please.
Yeah. I come-
She's gonna know it by heart, but all right.
She's gonna be your helper, I guess.
He'll be
Or
my
you have
stage
to-
At
assistant.
one point, I will be able to purchase it.
All right, we'll get
I
you
brought
there.
a piece of sea glass. If you wanna do something different, remember that I showed you last
Oh, the
last
sea
time?
glass today?
You're not gonna.
But I would have to do this process
Yes,
to it
because
first.
it
Okay.
doesn't
Yeah.
conduct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm with you.
I like where you're at, but
Yeah.
can't do it today. All right, let's talk about what's possible.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got
Nickel.
nickel. I do believe this one's copper.
Ergo the blue. Ah,
That one's gold,
hello.
Really?
and here's palladium.
There's silver.
All right. Yeah, there is silver as well. These are just the ones.
Did the prices range based on what they are?
Aha.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I told you, I'm buying this.
Yes, they do.
Not today, but I'm buying.
Nickel and copper are fairly inexpensive.
Expensive.
Gold is gold. Palladium, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
A CSC?
In between.
Okay. So, I mean, really, why would you want to plate anything in nickel? I mean, most people don't want nickel on their jewelry.
Allergies.
Yeah, it's so. Why would you do it? Okay,
Well, you could do it as a base for something else.
true. Why would you use it as a base?
If I want a thicker layer of something, a little more substantial, maybe it'll cover better on
Mhm.
top of nickel something.
Think about when you were very young. Did you ever
That
Paint
far
a-
back? Oh,
paint a room inappropriately dark color?
yes,
Did you ever have to paint over it when you were done?
yes,
Did it take a while?
yes. Will I ever do it again? No.
All right.
Yes.
So say you're starting with, some copper.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is the inappropriately dark color that you're going to have to paint over. And plating solution, just like paint, it covers, but it doesn't cover really well.
Different color.
We're talking the amount of metal is so thin, it's hard to imagine. So we need to cover it with something that's a little more appropriate for what we want in the end. So in reality, gold over copper, you could do it. You could get away with it, but it's going to be a little darker than
So
you.
we're talking
Like
hues and tints versus.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we want to put down a base coat, but we don't want to use our expensive stuff, or our expensive stuff. So we will put down a layer of nickel, which is a white metal, and not only is it white, but it's very, very tough. Okay, and it works well with the other solutions, so that the other solutions go down very easily over the nickel. You put down a base coat of the nickel, then you put down your gold, and it comes out much brighter. Silver,
God bless you.
as well. I can't remember off the top of my head which ones require that a copper solution goes down first, but you could also do the same thing. If we're following the same logic, you could do this for something like a black rhodium and use that over a white metal. I'm not really sure you'd want to do that. Do you remember any of the solutions where it was required to have a copper base coat?
Well, typically also too, the base coat, like he said, it will tend to show because the metals are thin will show through. So if you're wanting to do lighter colors like rhodium, silver, things like that, you want to go with nickel because it's white.
And then you use copper over silver for
Yeah,
gold.
yeah, you'd use copper over silver or something else if you're looking for a darker color like golds, Hamiltons, things like that. And can I interject one other
Sure.
thing? is that the other reason that you'll want to put down a base coating is there are metals that you can't plate on, like steel, for instance.
Right.
Gold
Yeah,
plating.
it's like
so-
putting down a primer coat.
Yeah, it's a primer coat. They won't stick to it, but if you can put down a layer of nickel over top of it, then now the other plating solutions have something to stick to.
And the nickel sticks on easiest to anything, yeah?
It is pretty versatile,
Okay.
and it's much more inexpensive than a lot of the other things.
So I've made jewelry out of horseshoe nails.
There you
So
go.
that would be something I'd have to coat with copper first before I could coat with gold.
Yes, copper or nickel, depending on what you were wanting to. You said gold, right?
Yeah, gold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we would have to sit down and look at the logistics of doing iron with a gold coating over it. I would probably want to brush up on that a little bit more before we.
Okay.
What about they say, oh, that's in Europe only, the nickel free?
Nickel free?
Mm-hmm.
No, nickel free is a big part of jewelry. A lot of people have allergies to nickel, so nickel free is a selling point, but it still remains that a lot of jewelry is
With nickel.
with nickel. There are certain instances where you have to use it, and then like you can do things like
Well,
maybe palladium would work. Again, I have not really looked into it, but you could do alternatives. You could also do a silver plating solution, which we do have. I just don't have one out here.
okay.
And then you can lay down a layer of silver. Just some things do work better with nickel. All right, so we've got our solution.
Palladium, what color it gives?
White.
White?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Palladium's an alternative to rhodium because at a time rhodium used to be $6,000 an ounce, and this was quite a while ago, and palladium came out as an alternative. Now it's still, I think that bottle is still a couple $100 for the solution, but it's still less expensive than rhodium.
This
I mean,
is
that-
working.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into this and why this is one of the more dreaded things. It's amazing stuff, don't get me wrong, but it is very particular and very cantankerous and wicked expensive. So we'll get into why we use that. Now I want to talk about the different kinds of things and some of the pieces of equipment. So everything that you're going to need to do this, you'll need your solution depending on the metal, and then you pick, after you pick what solution you're going to use, then you would pick what type of anode you would use. Anodes are specific to the solution. Most of these will work with, like this one needs this type of anode, which is a platinized titanium. So it's titanium underneath with platinum on top. This is a pure platinum anode, which is the exact same thing as this, just pure platinum. You never have to worry about anything else contaminating your solution.
It lasts.
Yeah, lasts a long time. It doesn't look like it will. It's paper thin, but, and I'll tell you the reason why it's a good idea to get the,
That.
But platinum makes me think money.
it's not cheap, but it is very, very thin,
Oh, it's like
Yes.
a paper.
very much.
It's like paper.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Very cool. And cost?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's more than
Wow.
lunch at Chili's. That's-
Very.
For how many?
All right. So, but a lot of the solutions and what I'll be using today are all going to be stainless steel. All right. Stainless steel works in many of the solutions. So, like gold, you can use stainless steel or a pure gold anode. All right. So obviously stainless steel is going to be very inexpensive. Why wouldn't you use stainless steel all the time? You want to take a guess?
Sure.
Doesn't last that long. Kind of big,
Tarnish.
Better deposit.
What's that?
Better deposit on.
No, you guys are all thinking good thoughts. You're in the right place. But the gold has to come from somewhere. We do not just draw it magically out of the air and then
Darn.
bleed it onto the surface. I know.
When I'm panning for it.
So it has to come from somewhere.
The solution doesn't have the gold?
Ah,
The solution does have the gold.
yes.
And if you use a stainless steel anode, the gold comes from
The
here.
solution. Oh,
Okay.
gotcha. So you have to add all the time.
Right. Well, no, you'll have to buy a new solution.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, until this runs out, and it's just like ink. Or toner. Your copies start looking paler and paler and paler, and then it's time to get some new solution. This stuff's not cheap. A bottle of gold juice runs about $180. But if you keep this, you keep it sealed so it doesn't evaporate, and you use a pure gold anode, which runs, I think it's under 100 for a 24 karat gold anode. And it's just like the platinum, paper thin, but it will last you a very, very long time. Then the gold comes from the anode and does not come out of your solution. So the solution, so long as you take care of it, you top it off with distilled water and make sure it doesn't get contaminated. It's pretty much good,
Well, very long time.
for a very long time.
Very
Well, I won't say forever, but for a very, very long time. So, what I'm going to do today is, since this is old solution and we don't really need it anymore, I'm going to go ahead and use stainless steel. Plus, getting a 24 karat gold anode out of him is pretty tough. All right. Now,
May I interject one more thing too?
sure.
The reason that you have to use a 24 karat anode rather than say like, oh, well, I have a piece of gold that I've been working on and use that, is because other jewelry, 14 karat, 18 karat has alloy in it.
Yes.
So when you're plating, the gold is coming off of the anode, and if you start pulling gold off of those other pieces, you're going to pull the copper, the
Yep.
whatever metals that are in there, and it will not only ruin your solution, but you'll plate weird things onto your.
Unless that's what you want.
So if I have a 24
Yeah, you don't-
karat
you don't
gold
want that.
earring at home,
Mhm.
whose mate has disappeared,
Oh, yeah.
is that something that I could
Absolutely.
use?
Absolutely.
The very first time I did this, it was a customer of ours, very good customer,
I'm sorry.
that we've had for a long time, and he wanted to learn how to plate.
Mhm.
So he came in and he brought a 2-ounce 24 karat gold bar with him.
Oh,
That
Jeez.
yeah, right. It was pretty fun. I'd never gotten to do this before. We sent it through the rolling mill and rolled it out into about an inch wide and about 10 inches long, and it was about that thick. And I just draped it over the side of the beaker, clipped the lead onto it, and we used that as our anode. It worked really, really, really well. All right. So, let's talk about safety a little bit. All right. The ones that we sell, these are relatively safe, but they are still not nice chemicals. All right. Now, in the very recent past, almost all of these solutions were cyanide based.
I see it says cyanide free. That's a good thing.
Yes.
Mm.
The cyanide solutions are dangerous. Okay. First off, safety goggles. You want to have some gloves on, have an apron, preferably something that's rubberized or chemical resistant. If not, then a regular apron is still a good barrier. You can take it off and get rid of it before it actually touches your skin. Be careful. Never, ever, ever mix the solutions. Do not work with more than one solution at a time. Some of the solutions are bases, and some of them are acids.
Oop.
And things like this and this, those are bases. These are the acidics, and these are the bases. Very bad things will happen if you mix them. Okay, so when you sit down to work, one at a time, clean up completely, then you can pull the second liquid out. Okay, so got my nerd glasses here.
Safety first.
There we go.
Are those magnetized?
Yeah.
Magnified?
Neither, actually.
I need them.
I saw some on eBay and I thought they looked hilarious and I
They
had to
do
have
look
some.
hilarious. But only if they were magnified.
I'm sure there's some out there.
Looks like some antique.
They are. But
But
hey,
to me, that's really important. It's covering everything.
Yeah.
There is plastic.
You only get 2 of them.
true, very true. You know, as jewelers, you need to take care of your hands and your eyes.
Ah,
I mean, not that you should let the rest of your body go, but at the same time,
but
just
there
make,
are important bits.
there are important bits. So we've got the juice, we've got the anodes, and then most importantly, you'll need a rectifier. Okay, this is a fancy control box that sends a certain amount of electricity into something. You choose the voltage, amperage, and you can dial it in through these 2 controls. Your leads attached to those 2 right there. I'm going to be using the older model back here, but this is the new and improved and fancier digital model with lovely LED
And
lights.
it's smaller.
And it's smaller, and it's quite light.
Lots
Takes
more.
up less
That thing
space.
is quite heavy.
Ah,
Okay. One last thing. Real quick, should you ever want to just do touches of gold or touches of rhodium or whatever it is, there is something also called pen plating. Now, this is a much smaller version of this. And this allows you to basically plug this pen in, and it'll have a little felt tip. Yeah. But each of, you can, this was a pen plating solution right here. I think this was 18 karat gold. You plug this in, you dip the pen in, bring some juice up into that, and then you would clip a lead from this to the item you're going to plate, and then just draw it on like a marker.
Cool.
Okay? It works pretty well. We had a lot of fun with a stack of nickels, and we sat down and colored in Jefferson's head. We also had a customer that bought one of
How much
those.
is cheaper than that one, right?
That is, without the solution, that's about 200 and some odd. Maybe 250, 280, something like that. It's fairly inexpensive, but it's very good for touching up plating that's already been done to an item. So if an item's been worn away and you don't want to plate the entire thing, you can also do very, very small gold accents on things.
Like covering up soldering.
Oh, true. Yeah, yeah. Like if you did silver solder with copper, copper works very well in that. You had to use silver solder on gold, or the solder, you just had to use low carat on gold, and it doesn't quite match, and then you could go over it with that.
That's the one that we could use for last class. Remember that we did a copper
Mhm.
mango? And I hate the solder, the silver solder. So I need to find a way to cover that.
But by using the silver on the copper, it will make you much better at soldering in the end. I know it's frustrating at first, but it will make you much better at it.
But
using
you can
silver
see the
solder?
silver.
See.
yeah.
Okay, now, so we've talked about all these different things that need to be considered before you start. Just be aware that every bottle of solution will tell you which anode goes, or which lead goes to which, whether the work or the anode, tells you what temperature it needs to be used at. So everything will be on the side of each bottle.
Temperature, do we have any, oh, you gave it, oh my goodness.
All right. So some solutions need to be heated. Some do not. Silver can be used at room temperature. It's very easy to get along with. We're going to be using the ultrasonic. We're going to be using electroplating, and then I'm going to be using the Hamilton Gold. All right. You'll notice I've got immersion thermometers in each one of these, and I'm using hot plates, which are not the most exact.
Yeah.
And these are relatively inexpensive hot plates. So it takes a little getting used to. Once you find out what temperature corresponds to where on the knob, take a
Mark
scribe and mark it. So you don't have to do that every time. It's a royal pain. All right. This one needs to be at 140 to 160, and this one needs to be at 130 to 140. All right, so I've already got them marked out. You can also use digital thermometers. They're a little more exact, a little nicer to use. Just you can't switch back and forth between the beakers. You need to really keep things very separated, very clean. I have 2 things of distilled water back here. I mixed up the batch of Electrocleaner with distilled water. They're 99 cents for a gallon. Trust me. You want to have absolutely pure water. You don't want something in from the tap. One area's water is very good. Another area might add a lot of fluoride, a lot of iron, chlorine, all sorts of things that can throw off this process.
And the cleaning solution, does it have any chemical in it or just
Oh, yes.
clean water?
Oh, yes.
Oh, gotcha.
This stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? This is a pretty potent acid. All right? And what I'm going to do is basically drop the item in there, run some current through it to even boost the action a little bit, and it's going to strip everything off the surface of the item so that it is absolutely clean. Cleanliness is a absolute must. Some of these solutions are very easy to get along with, some are not. Gold and silver are a dream to use. I'm not saying that you can skip them. You still need to make sure it's nice and clean. It's just a lot easier to get a good result. So let's say it like that.
Okay. And
Rhodium. This is the stuff of nightmares. Okay. The level of cleanliness for rhodium is insane. You must clean it and then re-clean it and re-clean it. I know, it's nuts. We have jewelers that have been at it for years, and they still come in, wow, this rhodium's not good. Well, what'd you do? Well, I put it in the ultrasonic. Anything else? No. Okay. It will come out splotchy, it will come out darkened, it will cover some areas, it may pull away, it'll flake off, all sorts of things. So, if you're going to do it, start with the ultrasonic. A steamer would be a good idea. Electrocleaner is a must, and then I would do it over and over and over again, like maybe 2, 3, 4 times. All right, and then once. Now I don't have everything I need to show you, but if you dip the item into some distilled water and you see it bead up on the surface, it's not clean enough.
Right.
Okay, if it sheets off, just runs off and does not bead up at all, then we're good. All right.
And do you use any solution also for the ultrasound? Oh.
I know. Got it. I'm Johnny on the spot this
Whoa.
morning. All right.
What do you use, like at the spoon or?
Whatever the directed. I generally tend to mix it fairly strong. And I would imagine that most of the ultrasonic solutions aren't going to be good. I've heard that the ammoniated ones work a little bit better, but I don't know anybody that really sells those anymore. So this seems to work just fine yesterday. All right. So I have got an old ring that it's neat, but it's not something that I really thought was good enough to sell, so I've got that sitting in the ultrasonic. I've had it in there for a while, so it should be more than good. At this point, you need to have your gloves on. Don't touch your face, don't touch anything else. Okay, you've now got very, very clean hands, and you want to keep them that way if you're going to handle the piece of jewelry. All right, so let me get a paper towel.
So one would not want to use powdered gloves with the powder inside.
Well, the powder's on the inside.
You hope.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
It's oils more than anything from your
Ah.
skin that we're really looking out for.
Okay.
Preferably nitrile gloves.
Yes.
Those would be the best.
Okay.
All right.
What about putting in a wire and then you won't touch it?
Well, with the gloves, you're pretty safe. It's going to go on the wire here in just a second. But
Oh, that looks clean.
What metal is that?
this is silver, sterling.
Wow.
And actually, there are a couple water spots, but for the most part, it's sheeting pretty nice. So we're actually in pretty good shape, but I'm going to be doing gold, so it really, like that bracelet, I did not clean that very well. I kind of wanted to have a good example of what it would
not
look like.
to.
Yeah.
So if you do something like this, is there any way to back it out and do it again?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Gold's thin. Gold's very thin.
So,
So you can just polish it right back off.
okay,
You can also do what's called electrostripping.
okay.
All right, which is basically a reverse of the plating process. You put it in a solution very much like the Electroclean, and it draws the metal off the surface and puts it back onto the anode.
Really?
You know? And it puts it onto the anode, and then
So you don't even lose the gold, then it goes back on the end.
it's not going to really be in a state that you can use it, though.
Okay.
Maybe if you use the same anode day in, day out for years on end, maybe it'll build up a micron of gold on it.
Okay.
But what it does do, now this is important. Electroplating does not smooth the surface, does not prep the surface.
Right.
It does nothing but deposit gold over what you already have. So if you have an ugly surface to start, if you've got scratches, you've got scuffs, okay, you're just going to have a golden scratch or a golden scuff.
Okay.
The exact same thing. So
Oh my God, turn it off.
now, if you want to plate over a surface that has already been plated, but the plating is uneven, then you would electrostrip it, and then that would even out the gold because it would only pull the gold off the surface. So then when you go to plate it back on, it would be a little more uniform. It's not a big difference, but you know, if you've got a chip here and a chip there, it may actually show through.
Or even a scratch or anything like that would show.
Yeah.
The strip, do you sell those too?
Yes. I just didn't set one of those up.
And if I also may interject, he's correct in that the electrostripper will pull off the electroplating, but it doesn't necessarily stop there. It removes the entire surface. So so if you've got something that's partially plated, it's still going to remove metal from the other
So
spot.
it'll put in a vermeil.
Right. You want to use it when you have to. Don't rely on it as something as a prepping chemical or something like that.
Okay. So,
I turn it up. Put it on. I don't know
All right.
what's doing. Sorry for that.
that's okay. Now, let's go back, make sure. So, the anode gets the positive, the work gets the negative. We've done this. We've heated it to 160 degrees. Turn the rectifier on, we'll get to that. And I'm going to do this at 2 to 6 volts for 15 to 30 seconds. And then you remove and rinse well in water. Okay?
That's all the time it takes?
Yep. Now, I've got my leads clipped to a piece of wood. It's nice to have some sort of edge somewhere that you can clip your leads onto so that they don't, and you want to do this with something that's non-conductive. Don't clip them to a piece of copper.
Or a stainless steel table? Or
Right, right. Well, it's not going to electrify you. What it's going to
But you're
do is
gonna get
it's
them.
going to complete the circuit. And,
Ooh.
you know, these are kind of,
Damage the machine.
right, yeah, they're kind of pricey. I don't want you to have to buy more than you need. All right? If you don't have something like that,
Ah,
clip them together like you would jumper cables. And then that way you don't have to worry about them touching one another.
It's kind of jumper cable.
yeah, they are, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, very much.
They're
so.
mini jumper cables.
All right. So,
That's the negative.
negative. Positive is red. Negative is black. Make sure that your cords don't touch anything hot because I've got 2 burners going here.
Oh, the positive or the anode, okay.
All right,
Which
yeah.
do you clip to which?
Anode is positive. work is negative. All right?
Okay, and this is an anode, and that's an
Yep.
Okay.
Now, for the wires, it's going to depend on what you're using, but for the most part, everything I'm going to be using today, I can use stainless steel wire. So have a spool of that on hand, and then you can just make your little hooks. You can also make like a actual tree, so you could hang several of these off the tree at one time. Depends. Sometimes you've got a bracelet and you need to make like a little basket for it to sit in, or it depends on the situation. But it's stainless steel wire, so it's not expensive. Use whatever seems appropriate.
So much better use stainless steel than copper.
It depends on what you're doing.
With
Rhodium, you would use copper, and then you would rhodium plate it, and then
Oh.
use that.
Oh, okay.
So you want a rhodium wire, but you're not going to get that. So you copper plate or rhodium plate a piece of copper. All right. So
Yeah,
hang it.
there are metals that don't go well together, like copper and rhodium don't go well together.
So stainless steel. Okay.
Now, so let's kick on the
Reduced.
juiced. I'm going to dial it down to 5. And
So 5 volts.
yep.
Oh, hello. Wow. And that's the Hamilton Gold solution.
And then that's the cleaning solution.
That's the clean, okay.
All right.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And then rinse and just
Rinse it, right?
I had no idea it was this involved.
All right. It's honestly, it's not really that difficult. So long, once you know how everything goes, this process takes very little to do. A little bit of setup, but in order to get it actually done, moments. Okay, so we've got it cleaned. We've set it through the electrocleaner. This thing is now, or in theory, should be extremely clean. So now we look over, I don't have the bottle in front of me, but I know that this one's the same voltage. It's going to be about 5 or 6 volts. And my temperature is a little high. I'm going to turn it down.
Is that a nickel or?
This one's the Hamilton Gold.
Oh, how many volts?
So this clear solution has the gold already in it.
Already in. Oh, okay.
Now,
We just
can
don't have that
everybody see?
bottle out.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's gonna be
Ready?
instantaneous.
Right.
Oh, wow. And it will even plate around that, where the stainless steel is, it's resting on the stainless steel. Oh, okay.
Stainless steel.
Oh, the stainless steel wire.
the wire
Oh,
that's
okay.
holding it.
Oh, yeah.
Stainless steel. Wow.
So the stainless steel does not get
Wow.
Okay, now I'm going to put this in again, so I'm not going to let you guys handle it just yet. But there is a time limit. You may have heard me counting.
Yes.
Okay? There is a time limit on how long you can leave it in there. It's, I don't know the exact chemical reasons why this occurs, but you can think of it like putting something in the oven. If you put it in for too long, it will burn. And by burning, I mean that the color will darken. It will get, progressively from bright gold. You can already see that it's gotten a little dark. Not too bad though.
Maybe less voltage.
Yes, less voltage may work, or slightly less time. Now you can do this over and over again. You just have to break it up into small segments. So you got a maximum of 30 seconds. I think that 20's probably a good range, maybe a little bit longer, but don't exceed 30.
And it'll tell you this on the box.
Correct. 2 to 6 volts for 15 to 30 seconds. And then each of the plating solutions will have similar instructions on the side.
Yeah.
All right, so you can keep it in for that long, take it out, rinse it, wipe it down. I don't know why this is the magic that allows you to then do it again, but if you stop, rinse it off, wipe it down, and it's already clean, so you can just put it back in.
So you put more time on that? There's little particles that travel through the liquid and then.
Little darker. I left it in for up to about 26 seconds. You can see it's starting to turn orangey copper, but now that's also part of Hamilton Gold. Okay. Make sure that your cords don't touch the burner.
That would not be a good thing.
And rinse.
So Hamilton Gold comes more darker than the regular.
Yeah, it's a
Kind of orange.
it's a very rich orangey gold. I like it. I think it looks kind of neat, but it does look weird. I like it because it's more of like a almost 24 karat gold. Not quite, but okay. So there you go.
That's awesome. So that one was the sterling silver, right?
Yep.
So you wanna give the look as a gold but cheaper way, that's what it is?
Yes, and you can do other things to it. I don't know if I showed you guys the bracelet picture last here. I've got a really neat thing that you can do with this stuff.
And the one is electrofoam. The other one is electroplating.
Yes.
I think that's the one that I want.
This is electroplating.
Yes.
This is electroplating, electroforming, and etching.
Maybe that's the one.
Okay. Now,
Oh, yeah, here, Scott. Look at the difference.
when you plate things, remember you're depositing in a layer of that actual metal. And different metals have different properties. Different chemicals affect different metals. So depending on what you plated and what you plated over, you can get some really interesting results. I meant to bring this with me, I apologize, but I do have a picture of it. I plated the Hamilton Gold over copper. Okay? So I did it with one of the etched bracelets like this. Now, you deposit a nice pure layer of the gold over the surface, and then say you want to patina it. Okay? Well, gold does not patina like other things. So what I did is I sat down and took a abrasive and took all the gold off all the high points,
Oh, and the copper. Oh.
and then that exposes the copper. So the copper is very, very easy to patina, while the gold will not patina with the same thing. So what we did,
Oh, my.
yeah, so you get this extremely striking contrast
Wow.
where the copper stays almost black,
That's beautiful.
and then
Yeah.
the gold. And honestly, I did 3 or 4 of those, and I got them much better than that one. That was like a first round. But I got the gold to stay really, really gold. And, you know, that took me very little time and effort.
Well, and with this one, because you electroplated it with Hamilton gold, you could essentially take like an engraver or whatever and
Mhm.
take off or expose the silver underneath it, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
So you did the patina over the bracelet and it didn't took on the side of the gold.
Right. So now you've got a copper bracelet, and a lot of people don't want the copper on their skin because it turns their skin green. So not only have you deposited something on the inside where it looks great, it's also really effective at keeping their skin from turning green.
So you could buy cheap copper chains and
Oh yeah.
electroplate them gold.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I used to do
No longer have to invest in gold-plated chains. Then they're fine.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause that's what we're doing. We're plating you're plating the silver here, but yeah.
Yep.
I wonder
Now, if
how
you-
many microns thick that is.
It's not very. For example, that.
Yeah.
I did this one 2-3 years ago. All right.
Wow.
And
it's
it-
still hanging in there.
No. This was from yesterday.
Oh.
It had just started to reach the point where it looked like 14 karat, maybe a little less. It was kind of pale and it had worn off. So I hit it yesterday, and this will probably last me another 3 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
the plating.
And I wear this, I never take it off. So it did a really nice job. That was 3 trips through the solution that I did 3 years ago.
Wow.
So,
So 3 layers.
and that seemed to hold on.
It's like with anything, the more contact it has with items, like if a plated ring will get much more
Yeah.
Yes.
wear than tear than something on a chain, things
Or a
like that.
bracelet would get
Exactly.
banged. Yeah.
But the silver plating solution works like a dream. I've got copper bracelets that I etched or patterned with a rolling mill, and then I plated those in silver. They look fantastic. And then you've got a whole nother level of what you can do with contrasting metals and all sorts of stuff. You can also, and I've never tried this, but you can also mask off areas. I don't know all the rules about that,
Yeah,
but
because,
But you can use you can use lacquers, things like that.
Oh,
you could probably also use the stuff that they use for etching.
Oh yeah, more
Yeah.
than likely. All you're doing is just creating a barrier where the metal won't stick to it. So I mean, now the option, it's like painting, basically. Now you can mask off sections, patterns, things like that.
Good.
Or you can use the electropen.
Yep.
Exactly. Because the nice thing about the electroplating pen is that
Just
the solutions you buy, say like this bottle of gold plating solution, that's about $180. But the similar jar of this, because you only use a small jar because use a much more concentrated solution. You can't use the same solutions, but a jar like that is going to be less than half the price.
It has to be a special solution. For
Yeah,
the
it's like in the gold, for instance, the same amount of gold in a quart bottle is almost as much as in one of these. It's a much greater concentration.
Just so you guys know the terminology, this is referred to as bath plating, and this is pen plating.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
when you come in and you ask for a plating solution, and Shelley goes, pen or bath, then you know. This one you use for immersion. This one,
point of contact.
just
And with the pens, now, instead of spending $180 on every single bottle of color, you can get yourself a color of 10 karat color, 14 karat color, 18 karat color. You can get 14, 18, and 24. You can get rhodium, which is white. You can get a black rhodium, which is a very dark, almost, you can even get it to black. You can get pink,
Yeah,
you can
it's
get green.
black rhodium is unreal. It looks like black chrome.
Wow.
Now again, it's not, those little jars are not for dunking in like this, but you can, but think of it as a magic marker, coloring with a magic marker. And again, it's one of those things that takes practice. This is more baking. Follow the rules exactly,
Right.
But the
This is
pen plating, it's kind of like painting, because that's the one that I've used the most. And whenever I do it, I kind of equate it to, have you ever gone to Home Depot and bought one of those really giant fat magic markers?
Yes.
And you're writing on a piece of paper, and if you notice, if you ever stop and the ink is still flowing out of the pen, that's what I would equate the pen plating to. So it becomes a little more of a technique. Still follow all the voltages and
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 it's
things
still
like
got to
that.
be clean.
It still has to be super clean, but now you kind of opened up a whole nother area. Most jewelers will come in and buy it for touch-up work, solder joints, tips, prongs, things where they've
Yeah.
done repair work, so they can cover up things where they just can't quite get it right. And it's a great tool, but for people who are designing things, now it opens up a whole area for.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I'm kind of curious because I do enameling,
Ooh,
and enameling really likes gold. And I'm kind of curious. I'm going to take this one home and try enameling over the center and see if it's, whether or not the Hamilton gold or the gold plate still helps with that sort of thing or not.
For example, you need to repair a piece of jewelry.
Mhm.
Then you have to solder what she was talking about. And you solder, and then you can use the pen for the nickel plating and then the gold plating, and it becomes like.
so in your case.
Yes, your
Yeah, 'cause I
thought is
wanna
correct. I
do
don't know if some of the things like nickel plating are available in a pen solution.
That's what I wanna do.
I have never seen them. But if you're doing a nickel bath,
Just
then
like-
you're
Yeah, you can do a
So
nickel
we do
bath.
like
I don't know about it.
have your solder and then just.
Yeah,
the
but
gold
in all
on
honesty, though, if you're when you're soldering, you do eventually over time want to get to the point where you don't need that because you want the metal to match. So in the case where when he made in the last demonstration, he made a copper bracelet and he plated it or soldered it with silver, where he did not have a solder that would match. And that's the case when you would use a pen plating, is when you just do not have any way of matching the solder to the metal. That's when you'd want to use it.
Yeah.
But if you were fixing a gold ring, you'd want to use a solder that would match exactly.
Yeah.
So that then there would be no seam to be seen. But sometimes it's just not possible.
Any questions?
It's a lot.
Oh, something I forgot to mention earlier, and I kept meaning to come back to it. When you do this, all right, it's something that shouldn't. Don't have beverages, don't have food, don't eat, don't do any of that while you're working, and never, ever, ever put this in anything other than a beaker. Nobody's going to mistake that for a drink. Okay, and those are heat resistant. So you can use those directly on the burners. You don't have to worry about them popping. Don't get cheap on the glassware. Okay.
And this is the only size, or it comes?
No, they come in all different sizes.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Everything from little shot glass sizes to that.
Really?
now, once we've used the solutions, do we put them back in the, well, I know, I would be terrified to dispose of that somewhere.
You don't. Hey,
No,
that
'cause
needs
it's
to go
got
to
heavy metal in it, right?
right. That needs to go to hazardous waste. You can do one of two things. You can get a airtight beaker lid, and something I should have done, and you always label it the second you put it in there. I like to put what's in there, and then put its stats, what sort of voltage, time, and temperature.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's no doubt as to what it is, because I've got 3 different things back there, and they all look exactly
Yeah.
the same. And it's very important that you don't mix them up. So label everything. Don't use glasses or anything that anybody could possibly mistake it for something other than what it is. Keep kids and pets away.
Yeah.
Okay?
And don't dispose of it.
Nope. You got to take it to hazardous waste when you're done. Okay?
Card, where do you take it? To card?
Hazardous waste.
There is a place here?
Yeah, you can go online to Orange County and they'll tell you,
really?
yeah.
Yeah. There's one in Sanford that's right on 1792, if I'm not mistaken.
Just off.
Just off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
419.
interesting to know how.
let them know that what you have, and be aware that the cyanide solutions are still being sold. So not all of these solutions are, none of them you want to be careless with, but make sure you know what you're getting. All right.
Do you have a card or something like to write? A card or card?
She needs to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
That is a
You
lot.
say
You know,
harder?
plus everything
Hazardous.
else that I already do.
Mhm.
Waste.
I think, to me, I find this to be the most preparation to do something, but I wouldn't say the easiest, but the most straightforward.
But if you plan a lot, you'd have a whole bunch of
Yes.
stuff to be
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
electroplated.
Yeah.
If
Or-
you set this up, and so long as you've got a dedicated workspace, I could, at the end of the day, I'd pull the thermometers out, make sure that your anodes aren't left in there. You don't want to leave anything in that's going to get dissolved by acid or contaminate the solution if you leave it too long. You just don't want to leave anything. Glass, and that's it. Then put the lids on, and then turn everything off, and then you can leave it for tomorrow. And then
Now
you come
you're-
back in, you flip on the switch, everything comes back up to heat, and then you're ready to go.
And you take your anodes out
Mhm.
and then just rinse them off in distilled water.
Yep.
Okay, and is it okay to dispose of the distilled water then? Is
Uh,
there enough
Depends
heavy
on,
metal in there?
if in doubt, just, here, let's coin a phrase. If in doubt, leave it out. Okay? You leave it out to basically just evaporate.
Right.
Okay, and then when you get down towards the bottom and it's a concentrated solution, then you can pour that into a disposable container and then take that to hazardous waste. So if you're in doubt about it, put it into something small and disposable, let it evaporate so you're dealing with the smallest amount of liquid possible, and then hand that off to the appropriate.
Do they charge you for that?
I don't think they do. I
I-
take paint there and they don't when I take paint.
Yeah, if you're just taking small amounts of items, they want you not to litter.
Yeah.
So they're willing to take it. I've taken stuff from here because we've bought out shops and where you're opening boxes. I'm like, oh my gosh, look, there's a whole box of plating solution I did not want. So you just, again, pack it up, take it down there, but you make sure you tell them what it is. And they have areas that, where you put this chemical here, this chemical here. So
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's the other thing too, is that whenever you're dealing with chemicals, make sure you ask for the material safety data sheets on these so that you know if you spill it, what can I clean it up with? If somebody accidentally spills it on themselves, what can I wash it off with? Things like that. So always keep those on hand. We have
And you can get
printouts.
them online too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
sheets.
The manufacturers will have them online. Like Kohler, I mean, they have all their sheets online. We download them, or anybody you buy them from. Just make sure that you get them.
Yeah, because if you mix the sulfuric acid with water, you think you're cleaning it with water, you burn
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah. Don't, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that's the one big reason why in the very beginning he said don't keep your chemicals away from each other, because they do react very poorly with each other.
I'm still afraid of the pickle.
I can understand that. I can
You know?
understand that. Well, it comes down to just being comfortable / knowledgeable, and comfort comes from knowledge.
Yeah.
Like the
What
testing
is
solutions
this?
we sell.